Hi, everybody. This is Ida from Celestial You, and I am here with the wonderful and talented Laura Barat. I'm gonna point.
Hello.
I think it'll actually point to you.
Okay.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. How are you, Ida?
I'm good.
Oh,
And
good.
I just want to say how wonderful it is to have you join me.
Thank
And
you.
also, I want to give Laura her credit because she is my teacher, and I think I'll forever learn from you, Laura. But
Oh, thanks so much.
I was blessed to have Laura as a teacher and really give me the answers in a time of need. And so I'm constantly learning from her, and I'm so excited to bring her on and have this conversation together.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet. I love having you as a student. One of my best, definitely.
So Laura comes from more than 20 years of experience in astrology, from Western astrology to Vedic astrology. And I was so lucky to have her as my teacher because I didn't have to struggle with whether to use the tropical system or the sidereal system. I didn't have to struggle through a lot of the proving grounds of astrology because everything that she taught me, and when I was comparing to other systems, they were always so much better and so much more clear. And so I always had that benefit, but I'm excited to work more closely with Laura. And today we were actually going to cover a couple topics. And one of them is we wanted to talk about from a perspective of different ages that humanity is in, to sort of give people some perspective on perhaps what is happening in the cycles of humanity and our evolution. And then we were going to break this down in terms of some of the mundane events or the bigger world events that Laura is so good at predicting. And then I was going to go into how the energies that are unfolding in June and in July and part of August would affect us internally and how these things would feel. So, yeah, does that sound good?
It sounds great. Yeah.
Cool. So we were actually, before we got on, we're sort of chatting about what a time this is for humanity and how so many are struggling to contextualize the obstacles that are unfolding before us. And really many are struggling to grasp what is actually happening, because there are world events that are just tragic one after the other. And then there seems to be a change in our interpersonal relationships and our spiritual development as well simultaneously. So Laura was actually talking about a book that she had read and that might bring some answers, and we kind of wanted to discuss it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so most Vedic astrologers, like I was telling Ida before we came on, quite a lot of people say that we're in the Kali Yuga, which is the Iron Age or the lowest age. And we've been in that, according to them, we've been in this time period for a very long time. Definitely, I can't remember exactly. It's about over 5,000 years, and that we have a long way to go to get out of it. However, There is a man, he was Yogananda's guru, named Sri Yuketsvar, who was an astrologer as well. And he studied this extensively, and all of the places it was mentioned about the yugas. And he came up with a system. He noticed some mistakes in the calculation and some misinterpretations. Anyway, he gives the ages differently. He says that we are in the ascending cycle of Dva Para Yuga, which began around 1500 or so, or in the 1400s, and that we were actually at the very bottom of Kali Yuga around 400, 500 AD. All right. So so I do have a lot of optimism about where we're headed and humanity as a whole, because I do actually subscribe to his system. At first I did not. I, had some reservations about it, but the last couple of years, I've come around to really believe that we are in an ascending cycle. And when we entered into Kali Yuga around that 400 AD mark, 500 AD mark, a lot of knowledge was lost, especially in Europe. It happened all over, but it was Christianity came along and really kind of destroyed most of the ancient world knowledge, burnt some libraries of Alexandria. But then we went through kind of a dark age, which happened for the most part all over. And then people started to come out of it. So Dva Para Yuga is what they say is you understand what's going on inside of the person. Before, we were more concerned with just surviving on Earth. And there was the atom. The atom was the measurement that was the smallest you can get. You broke everything down into atoms. But now we learned that you can split the atom, and there's things going on inside the atom, the electricities. And so since we're post scarcity, as they say, and there's so much knowledge about how to get what we need from the environment to survive. So many different ways of doing it. So now we're more faced with the question of what is existence, what's going on inside of me? How can I enjoy life? How can I get the most out of myself? And we're more concerned of what's going on inside of the person rather than just surviving. So I really do have a lot of optimism about this time period that we're in. Even though it may seem right now, there's a lot happening that can be construed as very negative and very depressing, but that is just a natural consequence of kind of a battle going on between, power structures that want to stay in power when people are awakening, people are, following their evolution and not needing or realizing they don't need so much out there in the material world.
So maybe Pluto and Capricorn.
Right. So Pluto is conjoined his node. All the planets have nodes, not just the moon. But when last time Pluto was conjoined his node was around the period of the late 1700s. And that was when the American Revolution, the French Revolution, there was a huge, lots of shifts, a lot endings of certain things, the aristocracy, the monarchies. And then, but the eclipse we had in December of 2019, that was right before COVID. That was a pileup of several planets in Capricorn with a solar eclipse with Pluto, Saturn, and Pluto was conjoined the node. That has not happened since around 400, 500 AD, which was, when he said we were at the lowest point of Kali Yuga. So that is actually the fall of Rome. Basically, the Roman Empire dissolved. And that was a very big deal. We don't really realize how big of a deal that was, but the Roman Empire lasted 1,000 years. Yeah. And so that same type of eclipse just happened a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago. And we are going to go through a major shift in the outside world. But
and because of the Capricorn symbolizing all the structures and us, breaking those down, and we're really
Capricorn is the natural 10th house, which is leadership. And it's leadership because it's the common man. It's Saturn, right? So Saturn rules the people, the common person, giving power to the leaders. And it shows to me, rather than the leaders clenching and trying to, keep this power, that the common work that is coming to an end. Yeah. That power structure is coming to an end. And what we're seeing now is kind of the growth pains, if you will, I should say the death rattle of the power structure is dying. So, and they want to hold on to power. So,
and I think it's so important to have that positive perspective that we're not like in the middle of the Kali Yuga. It doesn't make sense because the Kali Yuga being all about physical structures, and we're really tearing that up. We're almost done tearing that up, really. And so now it's like, going into like the Aquarian Age of restructuring our community, our sense of how we relate to others, our technologies, and really like redefining how best we should go forward as a group in harmony, in what is best for all, because Saturn's there kind of demanding that we restructure all of this. And the narrative is there's kind of two narratives, right? It seems like there's the clinging on to the structure and what's important. So there was this real kind of the death rattle, the sort of like, or the last gasp for control and power. And then there's, the new emergence of a new way of life. And so it's less about these concrete realities or really even materialism, like the death of materialism, right? Because who cares, like people are not buying new cars, there's less supply, but we're sort of like, let's just repair our car, let's just,
let's recycle and reuse things and
sucker, duct tape that. Our technologies, we're evolving on that end in our technologies, but in some sense we're kind of kissing Capricorn goodbye in a way and being like, look, it's not all about this physical kind of control structure. But if you're paying attention, you can see that. But if you're not, like I was talking to Laura before, that my father is 80 years old, and he was telling me how, and he's this guy who listens to a lot of news, mainstream media, and just kind of like has it loud in his house in the background all the time. And now has sort of, gotten his dose of fear and is now kind of switching over to wanting to find answers. And so he started to read history books, but unfortunately the history books are all about war and what's it called? Narcissistic, toxic male masculinity leadership, rather than, what I feel we're evolving into, which is more of a feminine leadership style. I actually have a master's in leadership, and this always comes back to me too, that like when I got into that, it was with the sense of wanting to bring in this idea of feminine leadership and divine feminine power. And it was in response to the toxic masculinity, because I remember going to my residency being a pharmacist, and I remember the supervisor of the pharmacy telling me, you're a smart girl, but you talk like a valley girl. And I remember thinking, I was just like, wow, I can see how you are underestimating me right now,
Yeah.
And I saw it. And later on, I just had enough of it. I was like, okay, I don't think we need to stay in this Mad Men era. So I start to study leadership. And one of the things that I had brought with me was this understanding that what is a feminine leadership, and what are the benefits to it? And one of the benefits are that you think of nurturing people and putting them into where they may succeed. And it's a different approach. It's a different approach than this top-down kind of, I guess you would think Capricornian style in some way, of the hierarchy to some degree. But again, the best sense of Capricorn, it's not like that. It's not like that. It's more about, the masses, but in some sense, we haven't experienced that lately. We've been experiencing this very low level kind of like controlling leadership style. So I think it's interesting to note that if you are sitting there with like a lot of news and you're not being careful with your spiritual hygiene of what you're exposing yourself to in the messaging, you may miss the point, which is that in essence, yes, if you look at the facts, it is a scary world, right? Because okay, this has happened and this has happened and so many things are happening. Of course, my father's going to the history books and he's looking at Stalin and Hitler and these kinds of, and he's like reading up on and really trying to normalize the feelings he's feeling of fear, that, oh, this has happened in the past and the world still turns, but it's not in the vein of hope. It's not in the vein of something is better, but in the resignation of this is how it's always been. This is how it's always going to be.
Right. Yeah. I don't see it continuing to be like it was. There's so much information available, and people are experimenting with all different kinds of ways of doing things, and just for example, like growing food or having a sustainable community. There's so much knowledge out there, and I do believe that there are certain power structures that want to not have knowledge out there, or have us go back to where they're telling us what we need, and what to think and what's going to be allowed for us to know. But I do not believe that will work. I don't think that we're going to go back into any type of dark age. I don't see that happening.
No.
And they want to like kind of put this idea, I know we were talking about this before, like put a magnifying glass on, look how awful everything is, like have all this fear about some things, and you've got to listen to us, we're going to, our way is the only way. And I don't see that happening. I think there's just way too much attention on, these people having power, or this power structure, when it really is not like that. They give this illusion that it is through the media, but it isn't.
No.
And, and we're just kind of seeing the transition of that out of that, relying on a leadership too much, whether dictators or whoever it is, relying on that too much rather than listening to ourselves, because we are in an inner age. The inner age is, when he says the feminine, that's more the feminine, looking within. And so we're more in an age of looking inside of ourselves for happiness. And if we don't do that, we're going to see that those things are not giving us happiness out in the outside world.
Yeah. And when I was, sorry, my camera keeps auto-focusing and now I'm blurry. That's okay.
Oh, no.
It's my skin. So no, but what I was thinking is, oddly, I do think the divine feminine leadership, maybe I was poised to come in and have a different style and have a different leadership, but it's because the times were already changing. People were done kind of ridiculing women for the way they speak and relate to others, and how maybe they pause and say or they say, or they're getting buy-in from who they're talking to instead of telling them what to do. And so, but really when you step into the divine feminine leadership styles that are emerging, it's like you ask the question that they haven't asked before is, how are you doing? You don't just tell people what to do, but how are they doing? And what do they want for their lives? And these things.
Yeah,
you
ask them for their input too.
And you ask for their input and you value it. So,
right.
I think we are poised for a change. And this is what I wanted to say, is, in my father's time, it did seem the world was cyclic. Okay. And he's 80 years old. So he's seen a lot of up and down. He's seen a lot of this kind of thing. Right. Mm-hmm. But it seems like we keep going like this in a circle. But actually, what I think the prophecies are saying is that it's not a circle, it's a helix. Mm-hmm. And so as we go, we're actually going up. It's like this. So we are never going back to the same place.
No.
Never. And now more than ever, we are evolving. And the thing that they can never take away from you is your internal evolution. So to the extent you can have that inner ascension and work through your inner work, even as we are about to talk about the planets of what's happening on the outside, what's happening on the inside, when you take advantage of these internal shifts, then you are doing the work of empowerment. You're doing the work that needs to be done on an individual level. And what's Saturn in Aquarius demanding that we focus on that, the individual, our sovereign rights, our sovereign desires, our sovereign spiritual purpose path, right?
Right. Yep. Definitely.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be really interesting, and I want this to be uplifting because, yes, Laura's probably going to tell us some things in this mundane astrology that on the surface do look challenging and they do look intense. Mm-hmm. But again, kind of wanted to start with this idea that we're in an ascension timeline.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Did you want to say a little bit more about that, or?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that there's a few other people besides Yuketsvar who said we're going more into a feminine age. We've been in and out of masculine, feminine ages, but we're in more of a feminine age in that people are becoming more inward. And, it takes a long time. I think this age lasts, it's 2000 or 2,500 years, the Dva Para Yuga. But in order for that to manifest more of the inward seeking, we have to reach a limit of materiality. And I think we have. We've reached a certain amount of saturation with material concerns, material happiness, having the best that the world has to offer in the outside world. And then once you reach that limit, there's a destruction of those things, which is Saturn. The limit, the best you can have is Venus. And Venus is the 6th planet. And then you go to Saturn, the 7th planet, which destroys those things. Then you move into Rahu, Ketu, and Rahu and Ketu, which are the evolution of your consciousness. So, but what I was just thinking about this the other day, I belong on some Facebook groups, and some other groups are talking about people wanted to kind of get away from it all. They bought land, they want to go live a very simple life. And, they have their material concerns taken care of, and they want to contemplate and relax. But the thing is, the difference is between doing that in the dark ages and doing it now, people are all on Facebook sharing ideas about it, how to build things, how to make, how to get water, and there's so many different exchange of information. But on the other hand, they're also wanting to have more free time to think and contemplate and, just really think about the meaning of life. I know that's a cliche, but
no, I mean, I think if you are going through an internal evolution, which I think we all are, one of the hallmarks of that is that your concern shifts inward to that more feminine, receptive mode of wanting to take things in, wanting to sort of deliberate, align yourself with your intuition, find out how to manifest from a spiritual plane rather than from a physical plane through action, because action is very masculine. And so it is a different ball game. It's a different approach. And the old approach of I tell you to do this and you do that and I protect you is a very masculine kind of approach. And that's fine. It has its place in the universe in duality, but it is not, this cannot be suppressed. Our internal growth cannot be suppressed. And in fact, if you are doing quite a bit of internal growth, you may have noticed that you are becoming more sensitive because as we shift into this feminine mode, we pay more attention to how things feel rather than I'm going to do. I'm going to be here and I'm going to see how this feels. And so sometimes people don't feel good to you anymore. And you're finding that you are really, really getting clear about the energy you want to surround yourself with. But if you are just going in circles from one fear topic to the next, you will miss this opportunity, right?
Right.
So it's just really interesting that the people I see really making progress today, despite, or maybe because of these planetary challenges that we'll see, are the ones who are being very selective about what they expose themselves to, especially, I would say, if you are having these heavy upgrades to your abilities, to your spirituality, to your means of communicating in the world. There's so many things that are happening right now on an internal level that are so interesting and so much more empowering. I almost feel like the external world is a shell, and the internal world is just like, it's like the shell is breaking and I see the light coming out of it, and the light is coming from within.
yeah.
Like, this is how I see what's happening. It is breaking the exterior, the shell. And so, yeah, you know, like, people will even tell me like, oh, you're so sensitive. And I started to think, well, you know, it's not such a bad thing that I'm sensitive.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Like, maybe I just don't fight it. Maybe I go with it. Maybe I start trusting it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You say, I don't know why I don't like this person, but I just don't, you know, like, or this just doesn't, you know, I don't need to have an answer. I can just be like, okay, I will let you go do your thing and I'll go do this other thing. So just as we go through these changes, it's kind of something to keep in mind that the external world may not reflect entirely or at all what you're going through on the internal. And it may seem chaotic, but in reality, you really, sometimes you need to break some eggs before you can make a dish, you know, before you can bake.
That's exactly it. That is what's happening. Yeah. You have to get rid of some of the old structure. And ever since that big eclipse, December 2019, there's been a struggle. And I was going to talk about that a little bit, but that was the big eclipse. That eclipse is what we're going to feel for quite a long time. And just having Pluto join its node, Pluto is all about the end of things. You know, things are coming to an end. It's time to sweep that out of your consciousness. And
in the node of Pluto, so they say the moon of Pluto is almost the size of Pluto, right?
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just learned this the other day, that Pluto has a moon that is almost the size of Pluto, and what it represents is the ego. And what Pluto seeks to do is dissolve the ego.
Yeah, that's its job.
So the alignment of that to the eclipse, you know, and like you were saying, it's just like, it's a symbolism of the dissolution of the ego.
That's absolutely true. When that eclipse happened, Pluto was with the eclipse with all of those planets. The big one was Pluto-Saturn conjunction. Saturn also has a node at 29 degrees of Capricorn, and Pluto's node is at 21 of Capricorn. So the Saturn represents how we get rid of things, you know, the refuse, the garbage, things that we don't want anymore. Pluto's very much like Saturn in that way, but Pluto's more inside the internal consciousness and the consciousness of the world. Yeah. And so when you had all that alignment in Capricorn on that eclipse, we were seeing the herald of the end of power structures, but also the end of where the common man, Saturn again, was going to give his power. Or, you know, it's the people that believe in the leader, or, you know, the government, whatever it is, that give them the power. And if they don't give that to them anymore, they're not going to have it. Yeah. And so that we're kind of seeing that happen now, you know.
It reminds me of how, like, somebody had said the other day, well, if everybody just voted independent, we would break the system in like a voting.
Yeah.
Like, people don't understand how easy it is. It really is.
Yeah, I know it is. And I think they want to put, like you were saying earlier, they really want to put a spotlight on that. We're in power and we're going to wield it and we're going to tell you what to do. And people are like reacting very negatively to that. However, they're not, that's an illusion. I really do believe that, like you were saying, that it is
They're
very
like,
much,
it's like they're raising their voices and saying, go back to your room. But
right.
it's, but of course, Aquarius is the teenager, the unruly teenager. It's us, you can't go back into the room. You can't put this back into the room. It's not
No, you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
And see, Aquarius actually is a sign of complete and total self-acceptance and psychological health.
Yes.
Because so Aquarius is the man carrying the jug of water. He's carrying the water. He's not drinking the water. He's not in the water like Pisces. He's carrying the water. That means that he is able to, he's, content in himself, psychologically healthy, where he can carry water to help others. Aquarius is all about, it's a very humanitarian sign. It's about helping others to help themselves.
Healthy detachment.
Right. And then the other thing about Aquarius is it shores, being on the shore of something,
yes,
which is the water and tanks of water, meaning you have the power to regulate your emotions. You're emotionally healthy, which water represents.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're containing it. It's a container of water. So and then there was that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on that 0 degrees of Aquarius. So that also, anytime there's a conjunction happening, that means there's an end of something and a beginning of something new. So those are the two big ones, Jupiter and Saturn. Going into Aquarius, it really shows that we are in the next 12 years or thereabouts going to learn how to regulate our emotions better, contain ourselves, and channel them in a way that's productive for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
it is
yeah.
understanding of the feminine, because that emotion is, you cannot better wield your emotional state unless you first understand it. I feel like right now we're going through the purging of our toxicity, our toxic karma, and our toxic negative patterns, and the patterns of our ancestors. Man, we're not just purging our own garbage right now. We're purging what came before us, and that's why it's so intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
End of a cycle is a big time of emotional up-leveling, but in order to do that, we have to face the shadow. So that's why it feels this way. It feels so, to many, so visceral. But again, you can either shut down and just believe that the world is a cycle that keeps going in a circle, or you can kind of explore the cosmic DNA of our path and how it goes up, and our birthright to ascend to a better and better place, even if, like, again, this exterior looks pretty crap on the surface, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, we live in a very interesting time where there is a lot of transformation that will happen.